Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here in this magnificent city, a city forever associated with free trade. The historic buildings you see all around you when you go outside, they're all built on the back of free trade. And today I want to follow Liam in talking about how we can draw inspiration from that past, to carve out a new place for ourselves in the world, to rise to the new challenges that face us as new technologies change our world faster than ever. When we met last year, in the shadow of the referendum, emotions were still raw. A year later, there's a new mood. People want to look to the future. They're fed up that people at Westminster seem stuck in an endless debate while the rest of the world wants to get a move on. Over a year later, I still get people coming up to me every day saying, "Best of luck. Get a good deal for us, Mr. Davis." And even, "Surely it can't be that difficult." And that's just the cabinet. Actually, every time I walk down the street, get on a train, or walk through an airport, people, not Leave voters or Remain voters anymore, just ordinary, decent people, enthusiastically come up to me and wish me well on our shared project. They know it's not going to be easy or straightforward, but the reasons that so many men and women voted to leave a year ago are the same reasons that drive me every day right now. We have been given a one-off, time-limited, extraordinary opportunity. An opportunity to make sure that all our decisions about the future of this country are taken by our parliaments, our courts, our institutions. Decisions about how to spend our taxes, made here in Britain. Decisions about who comes into the country, made here in Britain. All our laws, made here in Britain. We need to get Britain standing on its own 2 feet, facing outwards towards the world. And it's that last point. And it's that last point, looking forward to Britain's global role, which I want to talk to you about now. One of the most powerful arguments I've ever heard for being outside the European Union was simple. And it goes like this. What kind of internationalism is it which says that this country must give priority to a Frenchman over an Indian, a German over an Australian, an Italian over a Malaysian? Now that quote couldn't have come from further from this Conservative conference, because it was said by Barbara Castle in 1975. But what she said then, what she meant then, rings true today. We are a global nation. We export more goods and services than Russia, Brazil, and Indonesia combined. We have one of the greatest armed forces on the planet who show their worth to the world in the Indian Ocean, in Iraq, and the Baltics. We train the best diplomats and put them to the test by sending them to work for the Foreign Secretary. But now we're leaving the European Union. It allows us to be more international, not less. It requires us to face the world, not looking back, not glancing away, but with confidence and determination about the future we will build. And ladies and gentlemen, there's only one party can deliver that, and it's our Conservative Party. Now, I would be happy to work with the Labour Party in the national interest, putting aside our differences for the good of the country. But they've been playing a different game. They've now published 11 separate Brexit plans. And they are, to paraphrase Tolstoy, each unhappy in its own unique way. For the customs union, then against it. For free movement, then against it. For the single market, then against it. Where we've introduced a repeal bill to take control of our laws and provide legal certainty, they opposed it and offered no alternative. Where we set out our negotiating positions and got the process started, they opposed it and offered no alternative. Where we have set out a plan for life outside the European Union with free trade and a strong economy, they opposed it and offered no alternative. They claim they respect the outcome of the referendum, but they oppose every step required to deliver it. This is the most complex negotiation you could imagine, where one oversight, one error, could cost the British public billions of pounds. Yet just last week I heard Keir Starmer say, we mustn't get bogged down in discussions about technicalities. Well, I'm afraid ignoring the details of Brexit won't cut it. It's like they've got a new slogan, Labour, government without the hard bits. Well, we're different in this party. We respect the people's decision, and we will deliver the people's decision. And as we do it, we have to be clear-eyed about what we want to achieve, because the future of our country is much more than just Brexit. It's something to be excited about whether you voted Leave or Remain. Liam just told you, I think, in his speech, even the European Commission accepts that 90% of world growth is going to come from outside Europe. And as he said, having an independent trade policy will allow us to embrace those opportunities to the full. And it gives us an opportunity to lead a race to the top, to push up global standards, to protect rights for workers, to improve productivity and increase wages, and to lead the world as a champion of free trade, campaigning for the poverty-busting, affluence-spreading, wealth-creating impact that it will have. Now, as you will have seen, last week I was in Brussels, representing Britain on the 4th round of negotiations, and we're making real steps forwards, getting results on issues which affect people's daily lives, on the rights of British citizens in Europe and European citizens here. We want to allow all 4.2 million of them to carry on their lives as they do now. And I'm certain we will secure a deal on this soon. On Northern Ireland and Ireland, both the United Kingdom and the European Union are fully committed to protecting the peace process and ensuring there is no return to the problems of the past. And on the issue of money, as the Prime Minister promised, we will honour our commitments, because ours is a country which plays by the rules and obeys the law. But we'll do our duty by the British taxpayer and challenge Europe's claims line by line. But we must never lose sight of the bigger picture and the prize on offer at the end of the process. And it's only in this context that we can finally settle this issue. Closer to home, we're getting Britain ready for Brexit step by step. The first step is the repeal bill, a critical piece of legislation which ends the supremacy of European Union law. It's essential to a smooth and orderly exit, and it helps provide the clarity which citizens and businesses have been clamouring for. Now, where members of Parliament set out to improve this legislation, we will welcome their contribution. But be in no doubt, this bill is essential, and we will not allow it to be wrecked. On the negotiating front, we're aiming for a good deal, and that's what we expect to achieve. However, if the outcome of the negotiation falls short of the deal that Britain needs, we will be ready for the alternative. That's what a responsible government does. Anything else will be a dereliction of duty. So there's a determined exercise underway in Whitehall devoted to contingency arrangements, so that we are ready for any outcome. Not because it's what we seek, but because it needs to be done. And while much of our task lies ahead, when I look at what we've achieved so far, it should give us cause for optimism. Optimism that we will strike that deal, create that shared future. Because Brexit's not a rejection of Europe, or indeed the values and ideals that are shared across our continent. It's a decision by the British people to leave the political project. A project that may be right for other nations who remain there by consent of their own people, but one that's no longer right for us. They approach it, those other nations, approach it through the prism of their own history. One that in the past was all too often determined by dictatorship and domination, invasion and occupation. For them, Europe symbolizes democracy, liberty, modernity, the rule of law. For us, our own island story follows a different path. We had the most successful liberal democracy in history for over a century before we joined the common market. And when we decided to leave the European Union, we voted not against the political project itself, but against Britain's involvement in it. Europe's history will continue, and so will ours, and we will remain good friends and allies. And for those who claim that we're not good Europeans, well, did you know that we spend 1.5 times as much on defence as the European average? That's how come we send our troops to the border of Europe on Estonia and Poland. I call that being a good European. We spend over twice the European average on helping the poorest people on the planet, including in Africa, where British aid acts as a ladder for people to climb out of the clutches of people smugglers. I call that being a good European. And we're the first to help our neighbours in the fight against terror, as both our Belgian and our French colleagues found out last year. I call that very much being a good European. And none of this comes for free. If we spent only the European average on defence, on international development, on intelligence, on foreign affairs, we would spend £22 billion less every year. But we're going to continue to do what we do. Why? Because we choose to be good global citizens, because we choose to be good European citizens. And that's what we mean when we say we're leaving the European Union, but we're not leaving Europe. We're not giving up on our shared values. So that's our plan, and I'm incredibly lucky to have been given a team to deliver it. The intelligence, dedication, and sheer hard work of Robin Walker, Stephen Baker, and our Minister in the Lords, Joyce Ainley, our excellent PPSs, Gareth Johnson, Jeremy Quinn, and the support of our hard-working, public-spirited, and patriotic civil servants in Whitehall. And on a personal note, can I record my thanks to my two former ministers, David Jones and George Bridges. And I'd like you to join me in thanking them all, please. Now, if there's one thing I absolutely don't need to do today, it's to remind you, this conference, to believe in our country. But I have one message for you, is to keep your eyes, in this process, keep your eyes on the prize. You'll have read in the newspapers lurid accounts of negotiations, predictions of breakdown and crisis, offensive, even insulting briefing to the Brussels newspapers, which I personally take as a compliment. Of course, sometimes the exchanges are tough, but that is to be expected. The job the Minister has entrusted to me, the Prime Minister has entrusted to me, is to keep a calm eye on our goal and not to be diverted. Because the prizes for success are enormous, as are the consequences of failure. I didn't campaign so hard in the referendum for the pleasure of negotiating with the European Commission. I did it because the future of our country is great. And this government is going to deliver on that great future. Success will not be automatic. We'll have to work hard for it. We'll encourage the things that we Conservatives believe in. Hard work, enterprise, risk-taking, innovation, competition, self-reliance. When we leave the European Union, our successes, and yes, our failures, will be ours and ours alone. But we are the country of William Shakespeare and Jane Austen, of Alexander Fleming and James Dyson, a superpower in science. We have the fairest legal system in the world. Britain is where you come if you want to study artificial intelligence or life sciences. So, being who we are and drawing on our strengths, we can be confident that our successes will dwarf our failures. So let us turn to face the future, delivering on the referendum, setting out our new relationship with Europe, pushing forward to grasp the opportunities that lie ahead, looking forward to the future we will forge together, putting our country on the path to greatness once more. Thank you. Very good. Thank you. Time to fall down.